I love 2.5D games. Little Nightmares, Shadow Complex, Metroid Dread, and Inside are all fantastic experiences, and I could never say enough good things about Little Big Planet. Just what a masterpiece. So, Dr. Plague is a new stealth adventure from an up-and-coming developer, Patheral. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. From what I could find, Patheral is an independent assets and tools developer for the Unity engine, and he has a lovely YouTube channel himself, with several fascinating tutorials on the engine. It seems he took his skills and knowledge base with Unity and crafted his first full independent project, Dr. Plague. With the preface out of the way, let's review the game and see if this is the next big thing in stealth or a plague on the genre. Do you get it? Plague? Right, so off rip, I'd like to say that there is a story in Dr. Plague. Sort of. The concept is very cool. This world, referred to as the Lands, has been decimated by a mysterious plague that is killing not only people, but nature as well, evidently. A group of knights, called the Order of the Golden Rose, have begun to use the power of this plague to kill, pillage, and steal without resistance. Why? What's a golden rose? Why do they swear allegiance to it? I don't know, I guess because they're just big meanies. Basically, if you're not in the club, they're about to bust them cheeks, and that's that. You play as a plague doctor. He's not given a name, so I'll call him Doc. Plague doesn't have the same ring. He's been in hiding, working on a cure for the plague, and apparently in order for the cure to work, he needs to administer it at the source. You're told that the source of the plague is, quote, a big pit where the Order's leader draws power from, unquote. I won't spoil the ending just yet, but let's just say that the conclusion sticks pretty close to this intro. Let's just say you shouldn't play Dr. Plague for its plot. The game runs on, what else? Unity, an engine that has powered several of my favorite indie games. Will Dr. Plague's visuals blow your mind? No, but the style and the era we get to work with here kept me interested the entire time. I'm not a 14th to 17th century history buff. I don't know the precise architecture, weapons, or armor from this era, but I do know that I love running through a chilly autumn countryside. I was quite taken with the occasional vista, and the striking imagery of countryside windmills in the background juxtaposed with the hanging bodies in the foreground as you ran by was lovely, if somber. Character designs are simple. I like the big, heavily armored knights. It's all fairly generic, but I like the horns on their helmets and their bulky frame. But really, outside of these guys and the crossbow troops, there really isn't anything else as far as enemy design. There are a handful of deceased NPCs and some random pieces of people lying around, but that's about it. The Doc is a mix between Garrett, Fisher, and Snake, and I really liked his simple all-black sneaking suit, and I'm endlessly fascinated with the traditional Plague Doctor look, so the cool mask is a plus. The Doc's running animation is smooth, and jumping over low walls or transitioning from running into prone is sleek and reliable. I also really like the animation of the Doc tilting his head up at a climbable surface. I appreciate the subtle clue. The visuals certainly have some rough edges, however. Torches tend to pulse like lights at a discotheque, and you can even see them radiating through stone walls. And in general, the sort of Renaissance art design here is pretty bland. Standard castle walls, some flags without any insignias, and a few carts for the dead. It's nothing you haven't seen a million times before. Also, the plague effects are pretty cheesy and generic, just floating colored dots that indicate varying effects of the plague. They do their job by communicating information about your next gameplay challenge, which is all they really needed to be, but when you see a bunch of dots floating left to right in a cloud, it looks so goofy and it just screams, "Look at me, I'm a gameplay element." However, I'm not just trying to bag on this game's graphics. There are times where the visuals really had me stopping to admire. Running on a beach in front of a gorgeous orange-pink sky, crows flying in formation while a big lighthouse looms in the back. This is the kind of artsy-fartsy stuff that I love in video games, and the 2.5D perspective is great for these little moments, like a moving painting. I also really enjoyed the lovely orange glow of fire inside of this dark space. This brief section made me wish more environmental variety had been added, like a nighttime section or more interiors, such as castles or dungeons or something like that. Either way, the visuals in Dr. Plague aren't going to melt your face off, but this is a small independent project from a new developer, so I wasn't expecting them to. That said, there are some times when the creator's vision shines through and the occasional distinct artistry put a smile on my face. The soundtrack definitely helps with these moments as well.
He lives quietly as a monk at Wayne Priory. Baby.
The music in Dr. Plague is really nice. There aren't any themes that you'll be humming to yourself days later, but what's here sounds really good. I'm a big fan of stringed instruments, and when those notes hit just as you're running across a scenic countryside, it was lovely. The rest of the audio is sort of nondescript. There are little grunts and grumbles as the doc mantles his way across the land, but no voice lines. I really hope this game gets enough cash flow to warrant a sequel with a more fleshed out story. I also want to voice the doctor. I'm a doctor, and I've simply had enough of this plague. You see, something like that.
Baby.
I also appreciated the heartbeat that kicks in when you're nearing danger. Although you can basically see the enemies most of the time, it was still a nice touch. The only other voice I can remember is the animalistic screech of the crossbow troop when you're caught.
Huh?
What the fuck was that? Gameplay in Dr. Plague is easy to understand and it feels very intuitive. You can use WASD or the arrow keys to get around, but I found that I enjoyed a combination of the two, A and D to go left and right, arrows for up and down. Either way, you'll have no trouble picking up the controls. The basic gameplay formula is as follows: a gorgeous jaunt across a countryside, a stealth segment, a puzzle segment, and repeat. As I said earlier, I like how the game tells you right off the bat that you are not a fighter. I suppose, perhaps due to my impatience and simple ape-like mentality, I would have liked to wield a blackjack like my boy Garrett, but this isn't that kind of game. Your patience, timing, and guile are the keys to success here. There is no combat whatsoever. And as a massive fan of stealth video games, this was right up my alley. Indicators for detection follow the classic white, yellow, red structure. A white eye and the enemy is picking you up. Yellow, they are investigating, and red, you're basically dead. And the doc dies in one hit. So, I found this game because the developer posted on the Splinter Cell subreddit that the whistling mechanic for the game was directly inspired by Splinter Cell, and yeah, I can definitely see that. And really, you'll see several influences from other games throughout. This Pit of Spikes, for instance, was giving me big Limbo vibes. But I never saw Dr. Plague as a cheap imitation, or biting off these titles and trying to pass it off as its own, but rather, like with the whistling, I see plenty of respectful homages weaved into the game's formula. A feature that I found fairly tense and enjoyable was the ability to play dead. Not only is this a clever reference to the developer of Inside and Limbo, but it's thematically dark, and it's enjoyable as a gameplay mechanic in its own right. Other than this, sneaking around involves crossing barriers with precise timing and whistling to give yourself an opening. There are also a fair amount of puzzles sprinkled throughout to break up the sneaking. Most puzzles are fair, if a bit simple. Not that this is a bad thing, I'm not a huge fan of cryptic time sinks anyway. This is code for, I'm stupid. Be that as it may, the puzzles are decent. Some, like the one seen here, require the player to listen for audio cues, but then I died quickly. I thought the game had bugged on me, and then I remembered the bodies that I had just stumbled across, and the puzzle expanded further. Other puzzles include putting a code in a certain order and all that stuff. Again, it's nothing brain-bending, but I enjoyed that there was a handful of quandaries to break up the sneaking and running around. But it's certainly not all roses, and I did come across some oddities. When I was perched above this guard, he couldn't hear me whistling. I mean, really? I had to run up to this awning for him to hear my footsteps in order to then be distracted. Again, I say, really? There were also one or two spots with some sketchy platforming. I will say, thankfully, this was rare, but landing on a box only to then skid off of it right into a guard was really kind of annoying. Or rolling out of the crow form right into a bad guy, that was kind of corny too. Again, this was mercifully rare, and I never had a real rage quit moment or anything. There is one other problem segment, but we're getting to that. The plague itself is incorporated into the gameplay as well. The yellow plague is an area of effect where you have 10 seconds to pass through before the doc bites the big bazooka. It gets weaved into several gameplay segments throughout. Usually the cloud is stationary, but there are times when enemies will be carrying the plague in a mobile cloud, which is pretty clever. Worse yet is the red plague, which is instant death. It's a cool concept, but sometimes you need to be really precise, which can lead to a little bit of frustration. But with a bit of patience, you get through it. There is one more form of the plague, but hold that thought. There's another feature that I was not expecting. The ability to turn into a bloody bird. Whoops, sorry, I'm American, I can't say that kind of phrase.
Go outside, nerd.
Anyway, I wasn't kidding. The stalking crows grant Doc the ability to transform into a bird for 10 seconds at a time, allowing you to bypass guards or make good your escape. How is this explained in the story? Nobody knows. It's balanced by the plague, as hitting a yellow cloud shuts the crow down and the red mist still kills you instantly. But it definitely came in handy once or twice to flee some guards, and who doesn't like a bit of scenic flying in their game, eh? Alright, so I had mentioned that there was one more plague variant that you encounter. It completely nullifies your crow form and it leaves you on your own, the purple plague. However, to talk about this, we have to discuss the finale, and since this game is new, let me put up a spoiler warning. Skip to this time code if you don't want the final gameplay segment / ending ruined for you. So, when you enter the purple plague zone, the perspective shifts from a 2.5D into a more traditional third-person game. Now, at first, I was thinking, oh hell yes, time for some 14th century Splinter Cell, some Thief Deadly Shadows. My body was ready. Then, The Purple Plague segment is a bizarre hybrid of a traditional third-person stealth game and the 2.5D control scheme, if that makes sense. And it kinda doesn't. The camera is really the only thing that changes, and you can't free look or take cover or anything. It's almost an on-rail segment, almost. There was a lot of potential here, and if the mechanics had been more of a traditional free-form sneaking system, it could have been amazing and a very sharp way to subvert expectations right at the end. But it's very clunky, and if you slip up once, you have to start the entire segment over. Eventually, you'll memorize your path and you'll get through it. It's not terribly difficult, but it gets very, very tedious doing this multiple times over, especially when you encounter unexpected last-minute mechanics like tipping over a clay pot. The music is stirring, and I really do applaud the attempt to change things up, but and the ending, with all due respect, is just plain dumb. I had alluded to it earlier, but seriously, the way the story concludes is like this. You find the leader of the Order of the Golden Rose. He's just kind of hovering above this hole, causing the plague, I guess. Does he do this constantly? Does he need to eat or poop? Does someone come in and take a shift? Anyway, the doc simply throws his little nickel bag of cure into the big hole like a grenade and problem solved. You're told that the cult is no more and that your cure worked. Hooray. Then, after all is said and done, the developer thanks you for playing his game. Well, hey man, I know I was critical, that's what I do, but I enjoyed my time with Dr. Plague overall, and I see the immense potential in you as a developer. I hope you make more stuff, and I certainly don't regret plunking down my $8 for the experience. Obviously, as this game is brand new, it hasn't built up a legacy just yet, but I would say absolutely give it a try if you like stealth games. For the time you'll get out of it, the asking price is very fair. The story is a bit slender, and I would have loved more character development and perhaps a voice for the good doctor in the future, if there is a plan for a sequel, but if not, I had a good time with Dr. Plague overall, and I'm super happy that another new stealth game is on the market. Those are getting harder and harder to come by anymore. If you enjoyed this video, consider gifting yourself a Patreon membership. Members got this video days ago, and they get everything else early too. You'll also get exclusive Patreon-only videos and the music that I make for my channel. Patreon.com/hypertensionjohnny. You can afford a membership, but my love don't cost a thing.
Just like tacos.
Taco-flavored kisses for my bang.
Get back! Get back! No!